While binge watching most crime documentaries, you get a sense of safety because most of the serial killers that you watch behind your screen have either been executed or are currently rotting in jail. However, there are still many who have yet to be identified. Here's a small list of unidentified serial killers who might still be freely wandering the streets of our neighborhoods. The Smiley Killers. On different occasions, 45 bodies of young males were found drowned in bodies of water from the late 1990s to the 2010s. The strange part? There were smiley faces drawn with graffiti in the areas where the bodies were either found or said to have been dropped. It was as if the murderer or murderers had their own signature trademark to make it clear who was responsible for these gruesome acts. To make it even more strange, these bodies were found spread out across 11 different states. The police declared the deaths to be accidental drownings, but the families of the victims were not buying this. So to help solve the cases, the Smiley Killers theory was put forward by retired police officers. They theorized that these murders were organized acts of a serial killer or a gang of serial killers, because all the victims had very particular things in common. They all went to college, were popular, white, and athletic males. They all had visited a bar before their alleged drowning. Nearly all victims had been drugged with GHB, or the date rape drug, as it was found in the blood of most of the victims. And most importantly, there were signs of strangulation on the victims' bodies. Even though there is clear evidence of murder, the police's actions to try and label the incidents as accidents is ridiculous and make many believe that there is something darker going on behind the curtains. Years have passed and still no suspects have been identified by the police. Why does this strange string of killings seem to just be brushed under the rug? Let me know your thoughts in a comment down below, because I can't think as to why. The Long Island serial killer.
It is a murder case that's baffled investigators for more than a decade.
In May of 2010, a prostitute named Shannon Gilbert went missing after she went to visit a client in Oak Beach, New York. Before her disappearance, she called 911 to ask for help, saying that someone was after her and trying to kill her.
Girls screaming, "Help me, help me, help me."
The police started a search for the young lady and could not find anything for months. 7 months went by, and while searching for Shannon along the Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach, the bodies of 4 females were found 150 meters away from one another. It didn't take long for the police to conclude that the murderer in all these cases was the same person. This was suggested not only by the location of the dead bodies, but also by the similarities between the victims. They were all prostitutes who met their clientele through Craigslist. The autopsy revealed that the method of killing was strangulation in all cases. They dubbed the mysterious murderer the Long Island Killer. Between March and April of 2011, 7 more bodies were found. Out of the 7, 6 were linked to the mysterious Long Island Killer. At the end of 2011, Shannon Gilbert's body was finally found. The autopsy report showed that she was strangled to death. Despite all these killings, all we know about the Long Island Killer from law enforcement is that he's probably a white guy who lives in Long Island. That's all we know. Now, that seems a little strange, so the public has more detailed theories on who the Long Island Killer may be. Many think the killer is a police officer or someone with a position of authority, and they have good reason to believe so. The investigation actually started to slow down despite more bodies being found linked to the killer. It seemed as if the police department was deliberately removing officers from the case so as to keep the truth from coming out. Again, that is just a theory. Who knows? Even though it's been a decade since the killer last resurfaced, it does not mean that they are not waiting for the right opportunity to strike again. I have 2 more strange unidentified serial killers to share with you, and these stories are wicked. So if you're enjoying the content thus far, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Now let's talk about the Chicago Strangler. Chicago was home to the murders of many women from 1999 to 2018. Those 2 decades were a killing spree in southern and western Chicago, where the targets were mostly black female prostitutes. There are 50 unsolved murder cases linked to the Chicago Strangler because of the unignorable similarities between the victims and the modus operandi. The bodies of all these victims were found in abandoned buildings, garage containers, or alleys. The bodies had been burnt, some had plastic bags covering their faces, and they'd all been raped and then strangled to death. Thus the name, the Chicago Strangler. These murders stopped for some time in 2014, and the killer reappeared in 2017. Many believe that the killer was behind bars during that gap in time, serving time for some other offense. But many people believe that these murders weren't committed by one single person. They say that the DNA found in some of the bodies belonged to different people, but others say that those samples had some issues with them. I mean, they were sex workers, and some of the DNA could not be treated as trustable evidence, as they may have been with different men in one given night. I understand why some may believe these gruesome acts were done by multiple people, because you have to be one sick person to rape and murder 50 women by yourself. But if there were multiple people involved, why the gap between 2014 and in 2017. Seems weird to just have an organized break between multiple people. But a single killer or not, one thing is crystal clear. He or they have never been identified and are still potentially wandering the streets of Chicago and may strike again. The West Mesa Bone Collector. On February 2nd, 2009, in West Mesa, New Mexico, a woman was out walking with her dog when it found a bone buried in the desert. Confused as to whether or not the bone was that of a human, the woman sent a picture of it to her sister, who was a nurse. Her sister didn't verbally confirm nor deny her suspicions. Instead, she advised her to contact the police. When the police arrived on location, they started digging in the area to see if they could find more bones. They were expecting to find the remains of a human body, but what they found after weeks of digging was much worse. The land of West Mesa was serving as graves for 11 different female bodies. It was the most horrific murder case this part of New Mexico had ever seen. And an extremely tragic aspect of this case is that one of the women was 4 months pregnant at the time of her murder, and the remains of the fetus were also found in the grave. When these West Mesa cases are discussed, it's thought that maybe they were killed by a sex trafficking ring because most of the victims were prostitutes or drug users, so the police were not putting much effort into this due to the nature of the victims' professions. Now, a man named Dirk Gibson, a professor at the University of New Mexico who has written multiple books on serial killers, said Albuquerqueans don't relate to the victims. They think they're just a bunch of hookers and drug addicts. Police budgets are already stretched thin. There's so little money and there are so many crimes. Investigating a 10-year-old crime where the police think that the victims had it coming, there's just no incentive for that. However, prostitutes or not, I don't think it takes away their right to justice. Till this day, police still have no official suspects, and Albuquerque has largely forgotten about what was once known as the city's crime of the century. Dirty cops, drug gangs, combination of both. Are there more unknown burial sites out there? Who knows? Either way, the killer or killers could still be at large. Now, it is just a coincidence that 3 out of the 4 cases in this video had to do with females and or prostitutes involved in the case. That's just a coincidence on behalf of me and my researcher, but male, female, prostitute or not, I don't want this video to bring fear into your life and make you scared of the world. Horrible, dark things happen, yes, but so do miracles. Just always use your best sense of awareness when going out, especially alone, and learn how to protect yourself. You watched the video up until this point, so I think I've earned your subscription, so go ahead, click that subscribe button, click the thumbs up as well, as it really helps the channel, and I will see you in our next case.